Welcome, everyone. Have you ever wondered if your great product, your great skill, the most amazing thing that you have to offer to people out there, if that's enough? And that's what we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. Flourish-Meant is a part of the Spark Media Network and can be heard on the Edify app. Today, I have with me the Honorable, beautiful Jacqui Wilson. She is a ministerial entrepreneur, and she's passionate about utilizing her God-given gifts to empower others to fulfill their purpose. She's here to share with us that a great product isn't enough. Welcome, Jacqui. I'm so glad that you're on Flourish-Meant today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about today and what we're going to talk about.
So why isn't a great product, or for that matter, a great skill? Because some people aren't offering a product, it's a service, or they're looking for a career and they're sure that they are just the right person for that corporate CEO job or management job. And they just know that what they have to offer, their skill set and everything that they have that they're showing, that's got to be enough to get them where they are meant to be, right?
Well, people think that, and I truly believe that everyone has something to offer the world. I believe that everyone is here with a purpose. Sometimes we know what it is, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we figure it out and say, oh, let me create this great thing. And that's wonderful. But the most important thing is knowing why you do it. What is the story behind it? People want to connect with you, not just the product. People buy products or engage your skills because they want to know who you are. And yes, we know that the things that we create, it helps people's lives get better. But why are you doing it? I really ask people, I work with children a lot because I have a children's ministry. And I always say, you need to know the why behind what you do. If you don't know the why, how can you sell somebody on a product or the skill that you want to offer them?
Or a message. If you happen to be a communicator,
Yeah.
you need to have a powerful why behind that, because life is discouraging and there's going to be setbacks,
Yeah.
there's going to be challenges. How do you get past those if you don't have a why that's bigger than the challenges? How do we
Yeah, and I
discover that?
yeah, and I think a lot of people are afraid to tell their story because maybe they feel embarrassed or say my story is so insignificant. Who cares? I would say someone is waiting to hear what you have to say. When they hear your story, they may say, that sounds just like me.
And
And at
that's
some
true.
point,
Yeah.
yeah, and at some point, you were the same way. Before you ventured into whatever it is you're venturing into, you said, man, that sounds just like me. If someone says, are you looking for a way to expand your life, to explore new horizons, whatever words they use, and you said to yourself, that sounds just like me. You are there because you are a step ahead of the person who's just trying to get to that first step. So that's why it's more important than just the product or service or your speaking. People need to know why you're doing what you're doing.
So if you're looking for that overall why, the big overall why is the same for everybody, but niching down to what your why is, how do you discover that? Sometimes it doesn't come right away.
And that's true. With what I do, like I said, I started with children's ministry. That was not my initial career path. I used to practice law, and I love what I did, and it was wonderful because I was helping people. But as I moved higher, I found myself not helping people as much as I would like to because you move up higher, you become a little bit more bureaucratic and all of that. And I know God sensed that in me that there it was just not satisfying. It was a job. It was a good paying job, but it wasn't satisfying in the way that I wanted it to be. And so at one point he said, it's time for you to leave your job. But at the same time, I was scared. I was thinking about, first, I just got a new raise. And I was like, I've been waiting for this raise. But like, what's going to happen? Am I going to be stable enough financially? I had all of these questions. But really, it was one of the best decisions I ever made in life because of the lives that I've been able to touch because I was obedient to what God was asking me to do. I got to meet my children in Kenya, in Nakuru, Kenya, and as a result, we were helping them learn English so that they could move forward in their life, have a better educational opportunities. But then it turned into something else. We start, as a result of that, my experience with them, I said, God, there has to be more that I can do. And so we're in the process of building an online school that anybody in the world who has a need can access. And we'll have like free classes, some paid classes. But it really started with these children and thinking to myself, we have to do more. What is it that we can do? So that's my why in starting building the school. But if I had not had that first transition and working in children's ministry full time, I could not have this part of it. And now we're gathering teachers from around the world to help teach in this school. But to think about where would I've been if I just had not taken that first step. This school is not just a product. It is something that is going to empower children all around the world. And the impact that it will make on their lives, we probably will never know to what extent it will change their lives. But I know it will change their lives. But it all started with my why.
What are some key things that people can look for to discovering the why that God has uniquely created in them?
Everybody has something that triggers them. Whether you're in makeup, you decided to be that corporate CEO. The most important part of it is making sure that your response, your why, making sure it's pure. You don't want to do it just because somebody made me mad, but maybe you're doing makeup because you have a skin condition and you want to help other people deal with that skin condition in the most healthy way. There are so many reasons we can do things, but make sure that reason is a pure reason. I got mad at my dad and I just decided to, that's not good enough. Try to focus on the positive of it. Even if you say, I got mad and they told me I couldn't do it and I wanted to prove them wrong, do it for yourself. Do it because you can show other people who have been in your circumstances that they can do it too.
So look at the things that you need and consider who else might need those
Yeah,
things.
absolutely. Absolutely.
What about looking at your skill set? Is that a good indicator or not a good indicator of some of the things that God might be using? Does he stretch us beyond that? So that might be distracting us from what he calls us to do.
Yeah, so everyone has a skill. I don't care if your skill is being the most friendly person in the world. I've worked with somebody who was in special needs, and one of his top qualities is he's always so kind to people. And he can be a great greeter. How he sets the atmosphere when people come into the room and interact with him, that's important. So look for those things that are natural to you. There is nothing that is too little. Okay, you got it. A lot of people have that mindset that it's not good enough. It's not, but it's not like, yeah, but the Bible says God gives according to what you can handle. And then what happens is once you get use that skill and you use it well, and I'm a witness of it, God will expand it and he will push you. There are skills that I have that I did not have before the pandemic started, but I was forced into that as I was trying to move forward because I didn't want to be in the same place. So you have to know that God will push you beyond what you think, but he's pushing you because he knows you have the ability to do it.
Sometimes he pushes us past our ability, so we have to
Oh
depend on
yeah.
him to do it too. It might be beyond our
And
skill set.
yeah, because then you have to say, okay, Lord, I don't know how to do this. Show me. And he will show you. It was just yesterday, I was trying to figure out how to do something more cost effective. And God said, look over there. It was something so simple. And I was like, oh, I never even thought about it. But yes, it does create that dependency and faith because everything that we have comes from him. And I think we forget because it comes so naturally. If somebody's playing sports, basketball or something like that, it comes so natural. But that is a God given gift. Every part of us. In Psalm 139, it talks about how God puts all of our pieces together. And God created each of us to be this unique masterpiece. So whatever skills you have, God is using that for a reason. You may be playing basketball, but you also may be the one that's giving the encouraging word to the person who may be thinking about taking their life. You don't know. And that's why it's important to be the best wherever you are, putting forth your top effort so that people can see that light shining in you. And if you are a person of faith, then you say, God did it.
So if someone's thinking about pivoting, and a lot of people are pivoting right now, they should
Yes.
look at some of the things that they see a need for in themselves and look at the skills and talents and spiritual gifts that God has given them. And then kind of pray through, how might you stretch me beyond
Yeah.
that to do something? What are some other things that can help people understand where God is shifting them right now? I think so many people are shifting. How can you know the clarity to be able to take the step forward and know that it's God's will and not just a good idea?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, of course, we want to pray and we need to be in our word, because the main thing is you need to be aligned with God. I would have never chosen children's ministry as my primary career. I would have not chosen that. But it's led to so many other things because I'm listening. For example, when I started my podcast, it was just a side project. I heard people talking about, I don't know any Christian authors. And I was confused by that because I was like, I know a lot of Christian authors. What are you talking about? So I said, I'm going to just start talking to Christian authors, put it on video, and share it with people. And then I had an opportunity when Pandora listened, they liked it, and then they picked it up, and now I've been picked up by several other people. You don't know where what you do is going to lead. But if I had still been in my legal job, there is no way I would have been conscious enough to know that there is this need over here, even though it seems something really small. And now here I am, more than a year later, doing my own podcast as well. Just, you have to look for what is happening in your life. You have to listen to what people are saying, and you have to look at whether people are coming to you constantly to use the same particular skill in your life. For example, the third aspect of what I do, I've just added the Christian executive. What that developed because I had other ministry leaders coming to me to ask me solutions. What would you do about this? I'm having a problem with this. And I said, gosh, people keep coming and asking the same thing. Maybe we need to do something about that. And so that was the development of the Christian executive. Now my plate is full. And I'm stopping at this point, but my plate is full. And that is what I has created what I call my modern day disciples. These are the ways that I'm reaching out, speaking to people, utilizing the word of God.
Love that. It does sound like quite a full plate there. And it doesn't sound like all of that came to you at once. You took steps forward to see if this is what God wanted. I want to ask you a question because I know some of us, maybe like me, are a little bit risk averse. And so when you finally take that step and it fails, it's hard to take the next step. Do the results always indicate whether or not it's God's will, or do we sometimes have disasters that happen even when you're still doing what God wants you to do?
Sometimes we fail to strengthen us. Sometimes we fail so God can see whether or not we'll push past the failure to be what we were called to be. So it's not always an indication that you're doing something wrong if you fail, or sometimes you just need to do it better. Okay, we talked one of the Sunday school lessons over the last couple of weeks. It's talking about Cain and Abel, and we know the story of Cain and Abel and how God accepted Abel's sacrifice. But Cain was upset. There was it was had nothing to do with the fact that Abel's sacrifice was better. It's just because Cain didn't do his best. And I think sometimes we have to be pushed to see how much more we can do. I have a friend right now who has gone through all the steps to start her medical career, but she is so afraid of failing. And it breaks my heart because I can see it in her, and other people can see it in her, but she can't see it in herself. But I do believe that God is going to push her to the point where she finally accepts that I can do this. A lot of this is about confidence. When children walk, we don't tell them to stop walking when they're trying to learn how to walk. They take a step and they fall. They get back up. They take a step. Sometimes they fall and they start laughing. Sometimes they start crying. But if we step in every time and coddle them and say, I'm just going to carry you around instead. Don't worry about walking. They'll never be able to run. They'll never be able to play a sport. They'll never be able to walk across that stage. It's important that we have those moments where we fail because it makes us stronger.
And do those smaller results sometimes still serve the kingdom of God as you're moving forward to teach you things that you need to know for the next step?
Oh, absolutely. When I left my job, I had a friend tell me I could not even have the courage to do that. And then he was given an opportunity to expand his career, and he took that opportunity. But he said he was watching me to see what I was going to do. And like I said, I was not on board with it at first. And sometimes you will have doubts. But my doubts were rooted in fear of how I would be taken care of. But here I am, 10 years later, and I'm just fine. So people are watching you. People are seeing, and if you have children, especially, children are watching you. And if you give up every time something happens that is negative in your mind, because it could not be negative. Some things may fail because God is trying to keep you away from something, or he wants you to turn slightly. You're going in the right direction, but just turn slightly to this way. But people are watching you and seeing how strong you are. And it's hard. Nobody's saying it's not hard. It is hard, but you keep going. That's why when you know your why, that's why it is important. You're doing this because you're trying to make a difference. I'm doing what I'm doing because I know that what I do will change lives, and what you do will change lives. So you have to keep that in mind. It's not just about the product. It's just not about the service. It's just not about you being a speaker. It's about what it is you're going to do to help change lives. And we're all here to make a difference in people's lives.
So, if you feel passionate about a lot of different things, how do you know which thing is the right thing?
You have to just start reining it in. And some things just come down to practicability. Are you really able to do that? If, for example, we hear all the time, oh, I want to be in the NBA, I want to be in the NFL. But okay, we know you love football, but are you a fan or are you a football player? And you have to be realistic with yourself about your skills. Don't be out in la la land trying to say, "Oh, I like to do this." You have to have direction, and God is a God of order. And this is something my friends and I talk about all the time. And this is about the niching down and really understanding who you can serve. If it does not serve the purpose, your purpose, then don't go over here. You may like it, but bring it in. Everything that I'm doing, it serves a specific purpose, starting with the children's ministry. We started with something as simple as sending out free Bible study lessons. Now we're building this online school. That's all of it serves a purpose. It is many aspects. Some people can do one, some people can do two, some people can do three. You honestly, you know what you can do because God gives us what we can actually do. He's not going to give us more than what we can do. So be realistic with yourself and know that I have time to do one thing. I have a family, or if you want to do multiple things, bring in help. And that is something that I'm getting ready to do. I'm bringing in more help because we want to make sure that we are serving everyone's needs.
I'm thinking about the story of Moses and how many different careers that he actually had. He was a prince,
Yes.
and then he pivoted dramatically to being a shepherd out in the wilderness, and then pivoted dramatically to being the deliverer of Israel, where he was judge and he was guide and he was priest, and he did all of these completely different things than anything he'd done before. You also pivoted from law practice to children's ministry, which is a drastic change and not anything like law practice, other than maybe, doing a little bit of policing between the children when they get in a fight. You're not dealing with law matters when you're dealing with children's ministry very often. So, what made you sure that this was where God was leading you in this drastic pivot? And how can people know that they're not just jumping off a cliff because they had a whim?
Skills. It's all about the skills. Moses was a prince. He was already in a position of leadership. Then he moved to shepherd. A shepherd, even when you think about our modern day shepherds, thinking about our pastors in the church, leadership skills. He had to lead the people. He had to be judged. He had to be righteous. It's all about the skill set. Now, was for me, I do utilize my skill set from being an attorney and what I do, problem solving. I am very, very good at finding solutions to problems. I can look at it, analyze it, break it down, and say, this is what you should do. And each of the things that I do are interrelated. I tell people it's like creating an empowerment pipeline. I started with the children because we know that children need to be empowered. And my message is God made you. He made you just what you needed to be. You're special. You have purpose. Now, as we move along, and then we have look at the podcast, one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is knowing that they can overcome. What if you didn't get it as a child? Our goal is to try to give it to you as a child, but maybe you didn't have parents that are in the church or who were teaching you about God or Jesus Christ. And I'm coming across more and more people like that. So when you listen to the CWS podcast and you listen to the authors and speakers talk about their challenges and how they overcame, that is another empowerment tool. And then when we go to the Christian executive and we're talking with leaders and people who are starting their own business, they're getting empowered. And then what's going to happen is they're going to turn around and pour back into those children, pour back into other adults, and it creates this cycle. But I was already actually working in youth ministry in my church. And actually that came kind of in an odd way. And I'll briefly tell that story. We had gotten to a point at our church where we had multiple age groups and nobody wanted to take the baby group. Nobody was the smallest group. We had people for the teenagers. We had, all the middle school, high schoolers. And it was just this one little small group that was left that did not have anybody to cover it. I said, well, I'll do it on a short-term basis until you find somebody. Now, I would have never known that that was the path to start me into, where I am now. And so while I was teaching them, I was like, oh, I'm not satisfied with these Bible study lessons. And I said, all they want to do is give the kids coloring sheets. Everywhere I was looking, it's just coloring sheets. I said, if they can learn songs off the radio and understand what that means, I said, they can learn the word of God in the same way. And so I started writing stories for them to help them see how it was related to real life. And those children that I started with, at 3, 4, and 5, they're now 16, 17, graduating. It's crazy to see this, but it started with something so small. And that actually led to me writing my first book because God said, you need to put this together in a book. And that's what I did. Of course, I was a little resistant, this is not what I was planning to do. So I was very conscious of God's voice. But I listened and I did it, and it led to writing another book and another book. And actually, right before I left my job, I had gotten a call from the marketing people saying, would you be willing to go out and travel to talk about your book? But of course, here I am in this law job, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I said, yeah, of course I would do it. I just said, yeah, but really not thinking I'm going to actually do that because I'm already busy. But what's so interesting is what I'm doing now and the reason why I'm doing it. I had started seeing patterns in my job. I saw adults who had not been empowered as children, adults who were completely off the path that they should have been on because there was no one to pour into them. And then I had an opportunity to work in juvenile law for a short while. And I said, gosh, all of this is starting with them as children. And I said, only thing I'm seeing is this cycle of irresponsibility, but it's because somebody failed them. And so, taking all of that, I pour everything that I am doing into what I'm doing today. So, those God is building those skills. He's building those experiences. He's opening our eyes if we're willing to see it, if we're willing to listen. He is telling us what it is that he wants us to do. And eventually you'll get to that point where you're actually doing it.
Like Joseph, too. That's another
Yeah.
example of how some of those experiences were not his ideal end career goal. He was not going to be a
No.
slave forever or a prisoner forever, but he ended up learning the things that he needed to know how to do and experiencing character shaping that God was doing in
Yes.
him during those little steps. So that's kind of what that makes me think of. Not that you were a prisoner in the children's ministry or anything like that, but
No.
you were learning important skills that you needed to learn to be able to move it forward to do
Yeah.
this amazing, huge ministry out in Kenya and across the world with your school that you've developed. So that's amazing. I love all of these great things that you're doing and teaching and sharing here. What are some final things that you want to make sure the audience hears from your heart about how a great product isn't enough, but their why is the core of who God has created them to be?
You have a story. There is something in you that God has allowed you to experience so that you can go and help someone else. You got to be brave enough to share that story so that you can be the empowerment element in other people's lives.
Thank you so much, Jacqui. How can people stay connected with you and look more into the services and amazing ministries that you have to offer?
Absolutely. So my website is iamjacquiwilson.com. That is IamJACQUI Wilson.com. And I am also on social media at IamJacquiWilson.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can connect with me there and then explore all that I do.
Thank you so much, Jacqui. I hope that all of
Thank
you
you.
listening, I hope that all of you listening have enjoyed this conversation with Jacqui and that it has blessed your heart and helped you understand that you have a story, you have a purpose, you have a why, and it's bigger than any product you could sell. And God is going to empower you to be who He has created you to be. So I hope this has blessed you. And of course, I hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourishment.